My name's Ethan. I'm 24 now, but this story began when I was 22, in the final sprint of my college years. That intense stretch where every sleepless night, every skipped gathering, every hushed hour in the library was meant to bear fruit. I'd kept my focus razor-sharp, powering through my computer science degree while my family poured every ounce of their energy into my younger brother, Ryan. Ryan was the star, the quarterback of his high school team, always in the limelight. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't a bad guy, just someone who'd learned early that attention followed him effortlessly, while mine flickered and faded. I never made a scene about it. When my parents framed Ryan's barely passing history project and gave it pride of place in the dining room, I just shrugged and moved on. When he got a beat-up car at 16 and I was left taking buses to my part-time job, I told myself, it's just money, you'll make your own someday. And when he brought home average grades and got treated to fancy dinners, while I silently funded my tuition with scholarships and late-night shifts, I figured they just had their own way of showing love. But the real break, the wound that never closed, came during Ryan's high school graduation. I'd just finished a brutal week of exams, exhausted but thrilled. I'd been shortlisted for a prestigious tech award and had secured an interview with a leading firm in Seattle. Still, I reshuffled my schedule to be home that weekend because Mom kept texting about family unity and supporting your brother. So I packed a duffel, hopped a bus, and showed up. When I stepped inside that Friday night, the house was immaculate. Balloons, a banner proclaiming, "Well done, Ryan." Catering platters lined the kitchen counter. The backyard had coolers, one stuffed with sodas, another with beers everyone pretended were just for the grown-ups. Folding tables, rented chairs, a massive speaker queued with Ryan's favorite playlist. They'd gone all out, but not a single picture of me hung anywhere. I stayed quiet at first, assuming they wanted the day to be his alone, not wanting to make it about me. But later, as I helped Mom carry trays of brownies to the garage fridge, I asked, "Hey, can I invite a few friends over too? Some are local and it's been a while." She didn't even glance up. "Ethan, no, this is Ryan's day. We don't need you overshadowing him." I stood there, stunned, gripping the tray like it was burning my hands. Those words hit harder than I'd expected. I hadn't asked for much, hadn't mentioned that I was graduating college in weeks, the first in our close family to earn a degree. I wasn't begging for fanfare or banners just to be noticed. Something snapped inside me. I set the tray down carefully, forced a smile, and said, "Then don't expect an invite to mine." She paused, looked at me, and chuckled like I'd said something absurd. "Ethan, don't be so dramatic." But I wasn't. I meant every word. The party went off perfectly. Everyone laughed, danced, cheered when Ryan gave his little thank you speech in the backyard, Dad flipping burgers on the grill. Uncle Mike handed Ryan a thick envelope and said how proud he was, while I stayed nearly invisible, nursing a soda on the deck, watching fireflies dance across the yard like I was a stranger in my own home. After that weekend, I stopped checking the family group chat. I didn't go back after finals. I crashed with my roommate Jake in the city, picked up extra shifts at the tech startup where I interned, and quietly planned something no one would see coming. My university's graduation was set for mid-June, but I skipped the ceremony entirely. No cap, no gown. Instead, I pooled my savings, reached out to a few loyal friends, and started crafting something bigger. Something that didn't need a spotlight because it would command one. It began with a call to my cousin Leela. She was a freelance event planner in San Francisco, and though we hadn't talked much lately, she answered immediately and said, "Tell me you're finally letting me plan something epic for you." I told her I wanted something classy, something that would turn heads not out of vanity, but because if my family wouldn't see me, I'd make sure the world did. Leela didn't flinch. "I know just the spot." We booked a rooftop venue in downtown Seattle with a view of the Sound, a live string quartet, an open bar, local chefs serving small plates, and yes, a sleek banner that read, "Congratulations, Ethan Carter, class of 2023. It was refined, understated, and impossible to overlook. Invites went out online to friends, professors, colleagues. Not one family member was included. Not Mom, not Dad, not even Ryan. But I knew the news would spread. I made sure it would. A week before, I told Leela to invite a few of her media contacts, local bloggers, a reporter from the Times, even some influencers who loved spotlighting rising stars. The hook. First-generation grad celebrates in style after building a six-figure app in college. True story, I'd sold a small app prototype the year before, just enough to fund this event. The night was unreal. People I hadn't seen in years showed up in sharp suits and dresses, greeting me like I was the guest of honor. My old coding professor gave a speech that nearly brought me to tears. As the sun sank behind the skyline, Leela pulled me aside and said, "You won't believe who's here." I turned, and there was my cousin Nate holding a drink, grinning wide. "Hope it's cool," he said, waving his phone. "Just posted a photo, tagged you and everything, thought the family should see what they missed out on." I didn't stop him. I didn't expect the post to blow up. Not just among friends, but it got traction. One of the media folks live-streamed part of the night, and it ended up in a local news segment. "Seattle grad throws unforgettable rooftop gala after family oversight." I didn't even catch it live, but someone else did. At 7:13 p.m. the next day, I got a text from an unknown number. "Ethan, we saw the news. Your mom's distraught. Please call us." My phone started buzzing relentlessly after that. First Ryan, then Dad, then again. Then another number I didn't know, probably an aunt or someone using Mom's phone. I watched each call flash and fade, my screen glowing like a siren in the dark. Then the texts rolled in. "Ryan, what's your deal, man? Why shut us out? We didn't even know you graduated." "Dad, you went behind our backs, made us look like idiots on TV. This isn't how family works." Unknown number. "Your mother's devastated. She's falling apart. Please talk to her." I powered off my phone and tucked it under my pillow. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I wanted to savor the glow a little longer, not out of spite, but because for the first time in forever I felt visible. Not as a sidekick, not as a shadow to the Ryan show, but as someone who'd built something from scratch and made people take notice. Still, as I lay there staring at the ceiling, a small pang of guilt twisted in my chest. Not because I regretted my choices, but because some part of me still wished it hadn't come to this. I didn't want to be the guy making headlines for family drama. I just wanted my own people to say, "We're proud of you." That night, Jake showed up at my apartment with 2 coffees. "Figured you wouldn't sleep," he said, handing me one. "They called me too. Your dad's acting like you betrayed the country." I gave a small laugh and shook my head. "I gave them what they asked for, space. They didn't want me stealing Ryan's moment, remember?" Jake sat down, his eyes sharp in that cousin way. "Ethan, you didn't steal the moment. You created it. That party, it was cinematic, and now everyone knows what they did." The next morning, I turned my phone back on. The unread messages had climbed past 60. Emails, 2 long ones, some apologetic, some incoherent. But one stood out, a voice message from Mom. I didn't want to listen, told myself not to, but curiosity won. I pressed play. Her voice was shaky, barely her own. "Ethan, I saw the photos, the video, the banner, all of it. I didn't even know you liked strings. I didn't know so much. I'm sorry. I don't know where we went wrong, or maybe I do and I just couldn't face it. Please just call me. Let me explain." I sat there, staring at the wall. Not angry, not satisfied, just empty. Because what do you say to that? When the people meant to lift you up spent years pretending you didn't exist, only noticing when the world did. I didn't reply, but the story kept spreading. The video of Leela's speech, where she talked about my 2 jobs in college, the app I coded in my dorm, how I tutored her son in math over video calls, hit Twitter. A local mentorship program asked if I'd speak to their kids. Suddenly, people saw me as more than the kid who cleaned the garage while Ryan got praise for sweeping the porch. I started my new job a week later, in a sleek office with a view of the Sound, working with a team who didn't care about my family's opinion. Just how I fixed a major coding issue most undergrads wouldn't touch. But my family wasn't done. A few weeks later, Aunt Clara called. She was never one to meddle, so I answered. "Hey, hun," she said cautiously. "Did you know your parents tried to throw you a surprise party?" I blinked. "What?" she sighed. "Yeah, after the news segment aired, they panicked, reserved a community hall, tried to rush a banner, called it a make-up celebration. But they only told me last minute, and I said it wasn't right. Not after everything." I was floored not by the gesture, but by its desperation. A hasty attempt to save face, not out of pride, but embarrassment, public embarrassment. They didn't want me to feel valued. They wanted the world to think they'd always cared. Aunt Clara paused, then added, "They're telling the family they helped plan your rooftop event. That you wanted it hush-hush. You might want to set that straight." That's when I realized this wasn't about family anymore. It was about narrative, about control. They were rewriting my story, trying to claim credit for something they'd ignored. If I let them, they'd win just like they always had, keeping me in the background. But I had proof. Emails, texts, that voice message, photos, timestamps. I hadn't meant to gather them, they'd just accumulated over the years. And now I held the power they never thought I'd have. I didn't act immediately. I'm not reckless. Years of tiptoeing at home taught me to move carefully, to wait for the right moment. So I watched, scrolled through social media. Checked the comments on Nate's post. Peeked at the family chat I'd ignored for years pretending you didn't exist, only noticing when the world did. I didn't reply, but the story kept spreading. The video of Leela's speech, where she talked about my 2 jobs in college, the app I coded in my dorm, how I tutored her son in math over video calls, hit Twitter. A local mentorship program asked if I'd speak to their kids. Suddenly, people saw me as more than the kid who cleaned the garage while Ryan got praise for sweeping the porch. I started my new job a week later, in a sleek office with a view of the Sound, working with a team who didn't care about my family's opinion. Just how I fixed a major coding issue most undergrads wouldn't touch. But my family wasn't done. A few weeks later, Aunt Clara called. She was never one to meddle, so I answered. "Hey, hun," she said cautiously. "Did you know your parents tried to throw you a surprise party?" I blinked. "What?" she sighed. "Yeah, after the news segment aired, they panicked, reserved a community hall, tried to rush a banner, called it a make-up celebration. But they only told me last minute, and I said it wasn't right. Not after everything." I was floored, not by the gesture, but by its desperation. A hasty attempt to save face, not out of pride, but embarrassment, public embarrassment. They didn't want me to feel valued. They wanted the world to think they'd always cared. Aunt Clara paused, then added, "They're telling the family they helped plan your rooftop event. That you wanted it hush-hush. You might want to set that straight." That's when I realized this wasn't about family anymore. It was about narrative, about control. They were rewriting my story, trying to claim credit for something they'd ignored. If I let them, they'd win just like they always had, keeping me in the background. But I had proof. Emails, texts, that voice message, photos, timestamps. I hadn't meant to gather them, they'd just accumulated over the years. And now I held the power they never thought I'd have. I didn't act immediately. I'm not reckless. Years of tiptoeing at home taught me to move carefully, to wait for the right moment. So I watched, scrolled through social media. Checked the comments on Nate's post. Peeked at the family chat I'd ignored for weeks. Sure enough, the revisionism had started. Ryan posted an old photo of us as kids in matching jackets, captioned, "So proud of my big bro. He's been crushing it forever. Can't believe we got to celebrate him like that. Best night." The comments poured in. "Aunt Lisa, that party was incredible. Your parents must be thrilled. Grandma, wish I'd known. I'd have loved to be there. Uncle Dan, Ethan deserved it all. You guys nailed that event." Each comment was like a match striking tinder, and my anger flared. It was all lies. None of them knew. No one had planned anything for me. They just didn't want to look bad now that the truth was out. It wasn't just erasure, it was theft. But I didn't confront them. I didn't text back. Instead, I called Leela. "You still have the footage?" I asked. She laughed. "I've got 4 angles, Ethan. What's the plan? Can you make a highlight reel? Short, just enough to show who planned it, who was there, and who wasn't." Her voice sharpened. "You're posting it, aren't you?" "Not yet. Just have it ready." The next day, Dad emailed me. Not a call, not a text. An email like we were business associates. Subject, "Let's move on." I opened it with an odd calm, already guessing its contents. "Ethan, things have been strained. Your mother's still upset, and I won't claim to understand why you left us out of your celebration. But we're ready to let this go. Let's have dinner, just us. No drama. We can talk about your new job, maybe plan a small family gathering. Something low-key. Private, let me know your availability. Dad." Private, of course. They didn't want reconciliation, they wanted containment. A quiet dinner they could point to later when questions arose. A way to patch the cracks in their image without admitting they'd caused them. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to Leela with one note. "Add this to the video." 2 days later, Grandma called. I hesitated, thumb over the decline button, but answered. "Ethan," she said, her voice thin but sharp. "I saw that video on Instagram, your party. It was stunning." "Thanks, Grandma," I said cautiously. She paused. "But why didn't you invite your family? Your parents seemed so confused when I mentioned it, said they helped organize it, that Leela just handled the decor." I exhaled. "Grandma, did they ever mention my name before graduation? My degree, my app, my interviews?" Silence. "No," I pressed on, steady. "They didn't, because they didn't care. They told me not to steal Ryan's moment. And when I said they wouldn't be invited to mine, they laughed." Another pause. Her voice wavered. "That's not what your mom told me." I could hear the cracks in her belief, the slow unraveling of the story she'd been fed. I didn't want to hurt her. She was the only one who'd sent me handwritten birthday cards, but I couldn't let the truth drown in their lies. "I'm not trying to start a fight," I said. "I just want people to stop pretending." Then, like the universe had a sense of humor, I got a message from Mrs. Parker, my old high school counselor. "Hey, Ethan. Saw the graduation party video online. So proud of you. You've come so far and we always knew you'd shine. Funny thing, your mom stopped by the school last week, asked if we'd share the video on the alumni page. Said it was a family effort. Thought you'd want to know. That was it. They weren't just lying to family now, they were rewriting public history. My achievements, my moment. I felt like a painting being reframed by the people who'd ignored me, so I called Leela. Post it, I said. You sure? Yeah. Tag me, make the caption clear. This was for everyone who wasn't invited because some people didn't want me to have my own moment. That night, the reel went live. It opened with me stepping onto the rooftop, stunned by the lights and smiling faces. It cut to the quartet playing under the stars, the speeches, Leela raising her glass, saying, "He built this himself." It showed the invite, clearly marked private, RSVP only, with no parents listed. Then, as the music faded, it closed with Mom's voice from the message, pleading over a black screen. By morning, it had over 150,000 views, and my phone was a war zone. The fallout was immediate. I woke to a flood of notifications, not just likes and retweets, but messages. DMs from old classmates. Notes from coworkers, even strangers who'd seen the reel shared by a motivational influencer with millions of followers. This is how you own your story. But buried in the noise were the messages I'd braced for. Ryan. You couldn't let it go, could you? What do you want? Revenge? Dad, you've shamed this family. Your mother's a wreck. Was that your plan? Mom, please take it down. I know we messed up, but this isn't right. That last one sat unread for hours. I couldn't face it. Part of me, a small, stubborn part, wanted to believe she meant it, that she saw me at last. But I'd learned better. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry the world knew. Days later, I got an email from Dad's attorney. Yes, attorney, threatening legal action for defamation unless I removed the video and stopped spreading falsehoods about the family. I stared at it, almost amused. They had nothing. The footage was mine. The voice message was real. The emails, photos, timestamps, all real. Nate's post had proof of who planned the party and who didn't. And Mom's voicemail begging me to call after seeing the news made it clear they weren't involved. I didn't get a lawyer. I didn't need one. I replied with one line, "Everything in that video is documented. Good luck." They never followed up, but what came next was worse, the silence. The family chat, once buzzing with plans and jokes, went dead. My name vanished from their conversations. Birthdays passed without a text. Holidays came and went without an invite. I'd expected the anger, not the void. And yet I felt lighter than ever. I threw myself into my job, designing systems that reached millions in a month. I moved into a downtown loft with views of the water. I started mentoring first-gen students, led workshops, even gave a TEDx talk on resilience and unseen victories. The best moment, though, came a year later. I was back in town for a tech conference and stopped by the community center where I used to volunteer, teaching kids to code. It was the same, worn walls, old flyers, familiar faces. One of the staff pulled me aside. "Hey, your dad came by last month, dropped off a box of old medals and photos, said it was for preserving family history." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you keep them?" He smirked. "Nah. Told him we only take stuff that matters to the community." I left grinning, but why did it sting? A few months later, I got a wedding invite from Ryan, embossed, formal, with a handwritten note. "Let's move past this. No cameras. Just us." I stared at it, thinking of every time I'd been sidelined, diminished, told to shrink so he could shine. The party, the voicemail, the lawyer, I know, but I didn't stop there. I sent the invite back with a framed photo from my rooftop night, signed, "To the brother who said I shouldn't steal your moment. Don't worry, I made my own." I never heard from him again. My parents, last I heard, were still telling people I'd drifted away after moving to the city. Still claiming they'd always supported me. But the truth had reached those who mattered, including one more person, Grandma. She called me one crisp November morning, voice shaky but kind. "Ethan, I watched your TEDx talk twice. I cried both times." I swallowed hard. "Thanks, Grandma." She wasn't done. "I left something for you in my will. It's not much, but I hope it helps you keep going. Keep being you. Don't let anyone rewrite your story." She passed 5 months later. At the reading of her will, everyone expected the usual, divided assets, keepsakes. But one line stopped the room. "To Ethan Carter, the only one who learned to stand on his own, I leave my safe deposit box, its contents, and my entire savings account." It totaled just over $400,000. The day I signed the papers, I wrote a check to start a scholarship in her name, the Carter Fund, for kids told they weren't enough. Then I drove home, not to my parents' house, but mine. That night I stood on my balcony watching the city glow. No banners, no speeches, just peace. I didn't need their validation. I'd claimed my moment, and no one could take it away.